And I said, there's no rivalry between America and China. America is not trying to do what China did. If America was a rival with China and tried to do what China did, it would deprivatize its industry. It wouldn't be America anymore. Financial Times has a wonderful article by Martin Wolf on that. Traditionally, the interest rates on 10-year Treasury bonds, in other words, a government bond lasting 10 years, interest rates go up and down, and the dollar goes up and down with it. Every country, beginning with England in the 19th century through the 20th century, every country uses the bond interest rates to stabilize their currency. So suppose you're running a trade deficit and you don't want your currency to go down, whether it's the British sterling or the US dollar, then you raise interest rates and other countries will move, capital moves, investors will move from a low interest rate country to try to get the highest interest rate they can. So if a country has a trade deficit, it raises the interest rate, and that will increase investment in US government bonds. Or if a country is exporting too much and exporting so much, like Germany did for many years, then its currency would tend to rise. What do? You keep your interest rates low so that your financial investors are going to say, we're going to take our money and instead of investing in German bonds that pay only a few percentage, we're going to buy foreign bonds that pay more percentage. And this is how countries manipulate their interest rates to stabilize their exchange rate and thereby stabilize their international trade contracts so that companies can make export and import long-term contracts without being disrupted. Well, traditionally, the United States raises in interest rates, and you can imagine when Trump imposed the tariffs, immediately he uh, tightened, the dollar began to decline right away because other people were not buying dollars to buy U.S. exports. The trade stopped. But what happened was that normally the Federal Reserve would raise interest rates to stop the dollar from declining. But instead, for the first time in maybe half a century, dollar fell, and instead of interest rates going up, the dollar went down. The interest rates went down, and they went down because other countries were selling their bonds. In other words, other countries were not saying, "Oh, America's raising its interest rates now. Let's make some more money by buying more U.S. bonds." But they said, "Oh, we better not buy more U.S. bonds because they may grab our money." And it's no longer a safe investment. So they're afraid to buy US bonds so that the United States no longer can simply stabilize its exchange rate and balance of payments by raising interest rates because other countries don't trust the United States anymore. And they say, well, even if we sit down and make an agreement with Donald Trump, all right, we're going to give you what you want, whatever you want us to do, to get lower tariff rates will do. Well, they'll make an agreement, and then the next month, Trump will say, well, I'm going to want something else. And if you don't give us something else in addition to what you promised before, we're going to reimpose the tariffs. And the country will say, well, wait a minute. You said that if we gave you our industry, if we gave you our foreign policy support, you wouldn't impose these 40% tariffs on us. You'd leave it at 10%. But Trump would say, well, I changed my mind. This is I'm able to do it. because I'm Donald Trump. And whatever I say is the rule because nobody can do anything about it. And so other countries are afraid to make a deal with the United States. The Russian language is a very broad language, but every a few years they have to add words to it. And so they added a new word, non-agreement capable. And that has spread to other countries have adopted that Russian word in their own language. Other countries say the United States is non-agreement capable, meaning it doesn't keep its word. It says, well, we're number one, we can do whatever we want. We're the exceptional nation. And the exceptional nation means we don't have to keep our word. We don't have to obey international law. International law is what we write for other countries to obey. But since we write it, we can do whatever we want because we're the exceptional nation. And so other countries realize we've got to be a part of a different economic system than this. Whatever happened to the United Nations system, where there was a single rule of law, where all countries were treated as equals, not one country more equal than others. So you're having the whole world fracture. Now, I wrote a book about how all this was going to happen way back in 1979. Global Fracture that was a sequel to super imperialism. And at that time, there was discussion in the 70s about how do we create a new international economic order. Well, this began with Global South countries trying to say, how can we protect ourselves from American and British and French imperialism? What can we do to work together to defend our own interests? Well, it turns out it didn't. The Bandung conference in Indonesia under Sukarno and other conferences didn't work because they didn't have a critical mass. They weren't a large enough group of countries to create an alternative to the United States and Europe. But today, thanks to the fact that America has moved all of its industry and Europe has moved its industry to China and other Asian countries, now there's a critical mass in the rest of the world. Now the rest of the world does have an alternative that it didn't have in 1945, that it didn't have in the 1970s when it was discussing the new international economic order. For the first time now, other countries are able to create their own new world economy with its own world of what is fair and what is unfair, and how can we isolate countries that do not pay for the world, and how can we isolate countries that are international criminals so that they are exiled from the world that we deal in. That's what is being discussed by all the other countries in the world together. How can we get together? And they have to work together. There's not going to be one country that is going to be the new leader. I was asked yesterday on Glenn Deason's show, well, how can America work out its rivalry with China? And I said, there's no rivalry between America and China. America is not trying to do what China did. If America was a rival with China and tried to do what China did, it would deprivatize its industry. It wouldn't be America anymore. It would be the kind of America that people thought America was going to be in the 19th century, but not the kind of America that it's become. It would try to raise its living standards, not lower them. So it's not trying to rival China. It realizes that it cannot rival China. All that it can do is slow China's success and the success of Asia and the success of the rest of the world by being as disruptive as it can. All America can do, instead of being a real rival with other countries, it can't industrialize better than they do because it doesn't have the industry anymore. It's a high-cost economy. It's crippled itself economically with neoliberalism, with Margaret Thatcherism, with Ronald Reaganism. So all it can do is disrupt. It can have, as I say, it can have Wahhabi terrorists destabilize China, just as they're trying to destabilize Central Asia, south of Russia. It can try to disrupt their trade. It can grab their dollar holdings and weaponize the US dollar. It can disrupt the world, but it can't be a rival of it, because if it were a rival, it would have to be an efficient economy. It would have to be a socialist economy. And if you're not a socialist economy, you're not going to be able to rival anybody. You're going to be left behind. You're falling back into feudalism and being a neo-feudal economy. That's so the United States and the rest of the world are going in two different directions, not rivalry at all, just disruption and antagonism. And being an antagonist and a disruptor is not being a rival. It's being someone who's going to be left out.